Welcome to the DFS JAGS PGA Golf Show, DraftKings bets, picks, the 2021 BMW Championship, the penultimate event too, the Tour Championship at East Lake. I remind all of you, like I do every single week, to like, comment, and subscribe to the Nickel City Mafia channel. We've got a ton of good content coming out. The NFL season is getting near. We've got fantasy football, golf betting, and of course, all things Buffalo. Not that I give a shit about any of that, but hey, we're going to stay on brand. So that's how we started. That's where we're going. Rick and Chris will be doing a deep dive on running backs and wide receiver sleepers this week. Mike and Chris will be recapping Bills and Ravens game potentially all years long. So I don't imagine anybody's going to tune into that, but whatever. And we'll be rolling out a brand new weekly pick show for the NFL once the regular season comes around. We got a number of great shows coming out. So just subscribe, and then I don't have to do this anymore. You just click the button one time, and then that's it. We're done. I don't need to sit here. I don't need to ask you. We're just finished with it. Joining me, as always, on the line to commiserate another kick in the nuts, a tough week, but at least we didn't have the guy in second place or in the playoff like we had the last couple, helping each and every one of you lose a ton of cash, whether it's betting or DFS. Baltimore's own, suited and booted tonight, Dr. Riku Mukherjee. Rick, what's going on, man?
Hey man, yeah, I'm suited and booted, like you said. I'm representing my home state of Maryland this week. As we know, the tournament this week's at Caves Valley in. Everyone keeps saying Baltimore, Maryland, but it's not Baltimore. It's Owings Mills, Maryland. It's a suburb of Baltimore, so it's a little outside the city. But I guess since Baltimore is the main city there, everyone's going to be talking about Baltimore.
Yeah, well, I mean, if somebody told me, hey, the tournament's in Owings Mills, I'd be like, where the hell is that?
That's true.
It'd be like if you told somebody from Baltimore, yeah, the tournament's in Temecula. They'd be like, Temecula, where the hell is that? So, no, I mean, it makes sense that everybody's saying Baltimore. Just, hey, it's in Baltimore. It's outside of Baltimore. It's in the state of Maryland, and it's in close proximity to the city of Baltimore. So,
yep, it's a very private course. I've actually never seen it in person. They've never had a PGA Tour event there or anything like that, and never played it. I've tried to play as many courses as I can while I was living in Maryland, but they're super private. Like, it's even hard to get on as a guest there. So yeah, I just never had the hookup to ever go play there. I would love to play it, and it looks good on I was checking it out on Google Earth earlier today, and it looks pretty tight, but I never got a chance to play it, unfortunately.
yeah, that is the big wild card this week, right? Is that the BMW Championship is being played at a brand new course. It's something that we've never seen before. Last year, I think this tournament was played at Olympia Fields. It was a super super tough tournament. They ratcheted up all of the rough around the fairways, and I think Rahm won it at like 4 under. So it's really interesting because we don't know what to expect from the course. A lot of people are doing very similar things like you're doing. They're going online, they're checking out footages, trying to get any insight that they possibly can about the course. It is a Tom Fazio design. It is a long course. It's over 7,400 yards. So it's going to be one of the longer courses that we've seen. So you got to think that's probably going to give some advantage to the guys that are a little bit longer off the tee. I think the big thing that folks are kind of circling around, and we won't really know this until guys who are there doing practice rounds, which all of that's been delayed because of the Monday finish. We'll get into that in a second. But whether or not they're going to make any significant changes to that rough, whether they let it play out to something similar to what we saw last week, or these guys are going to be standing in, US Open style rough, which is what happened at Olympia Fields last year. So, I think a lot of us are kind of in the dark in terms of knowing what to expect, which type of guys will set up well. And so that leads me to think, hey, lean ball striker, lean guys who are good off the tee, and ride form, right? Guys that are playing well right now. And since we don't have any of that course history information, but I mean, what are you doing this week? How are you approaching it, Rick?
Yeah, I'm just leaning on ball strikers, to be completely honest with you. I think that's always a good way to go, is leaning on ball strikers. And when you have such an unknown on how the course is going to play out. I mean, just from what I've been reading, I don't think it's going to be a birdie fest. Like, I don't think it's going to be like in the 20s or anything like that. And I don't think it's going to be like super hard like it was last year when it was a -4 winning score. So I think it's going to be something in between, like a 10, 11, 12, like something like that. So yeah, when it comes to that, just leaning ball strikers and just people that, who can get it on the green and make a couple putts. That's kind of where I'm going to be leaning towards this week.
Yeah, one significant withdrawal. The only guy who's not in the field. So instead of having the full 70, we're going to have 69 golfers out there. Is Patrick Reed. He actually put out last week that he had an ankle injury, which is why he withdrew. And then I think Monday he put out that he's got bilateral pneumonia, and the guy's in the hospital, which is crazy. I mean, that's not a flippant thing to just put out there. Bilateral pneumonia has killed a ton of people.
Yeah.
And that's a very, very serious condition. So not only, I mean, does it bring in a number of things for him, in terms of playing in the tournament championship or maybe in the Ryder Cup, but we're talking about like long-term effects and what could be, something that put a hamper at least on his season this year. He's probably done, probably not going to play any more events, not going to play in the Ryder Cup. But, Patrick Reed, you would think if it is a 10 to 12 score, that sets up for Patrick Reed.
Yeah, I wish him the best. I hope he's feeling okay. I mean, a lot of people give him a lot of shit for being Patrick Reed, but I'm actually a Patrick Reed fan. I like betting on him.
100%.
I like playing him in DraftKings and stuff like that. Yeah, bilateral pneumonia. Obviously I've never experienced it, but it doesn't sound good. He's in the hospital. But funny thing is, last week, I wasn't going to go through what I went the week before when I woke up here on the West Coast, and Henrik Norlander was in my main lineup, and then he withdrew right before the tournament. I actually set an alarm. I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning last week on Thursday. Patrick Reed was in my main lineup. I got his ass out of there as soon as I saw the news break. I want to thank all the people that alerted me on Twitter, email, like all that stuff, saying that Patrick Reed was out.
Yeah.
The clear pivot there was Cam Smith, so I went down to Cam Smith, and it actually ended up working out well with Cam Smith finishing second. So yeah, we'll get into the recap in a little bit, but that actually helped my week a lot. I actually had a really good DraftKings week. Betting wise, wasn't the greatest. I saved my week with my free money play last week with Harold Varner, top 20, which was never really a sweat. I had him at 6-1, so that really saved my week when it came to betting. But I had a really big ticket on Hovland, and I don't really know what happened to him on Monday. He just played terrible.
He took an 8. That's what happened to Hovland. He took an 8 and then proceeded to smash his putter.
Yeah, we'll get into that for this week. I actually kind of liked it a little bit, to be completely honest with you. I'm back on him again this week, but yeah, I've never seen that out of him. That was like the most uncharacteristic thing out of Victor Hovland I've ever seen. Like, he's usually like, I've seen him make 8s before. I think it was earlier this year in a tournament at the what was that, the first WGC of the year, that Morikawa, and he like made an 8, like, and if he didn't make an 8, he probably would have won the tournament. He usually takes that with a smile. Like, he usually makes an 8 or makes a high number and just smiles and moves on. This time he was pissed. Like, he was angry at himself, and he obviously smashed his putter into his bag and broke it, and maybe probably broke a couple other clubs in his bag. But yeah, it wasn't a good Monday for him. That was the only real betting ticket I had live last week, and I was really hoping that, he started on Monday the same score as Finau, and if he just shot the same round as Finau, he would have been in the playoffs. So it kind of sucked that I didn't get that betting ticket. But Harold Varner the third, I was really feeling him last week. He played wonderful. It was never outside the top 20 at all from Thursday, so it was never really a sweat. And yeah, that saved my week. And in DraftKings, I did really well last week.
Yeah, so you mentioned it, the free money pick at Harold Varner. That's 2 weeks in a row. We got Webb Simpson, Varner back to back, and we'll cover that. We'll save it for the end of the show because you've got another pick this week, another free money pick like you that absolutely saved my week. I went heavy on HV3 with the free money ticket. I didn't get the 6-1, but I got a 4-1. It basically covered my week. Like you, I didn't have a lot really invested at the top. I had JT, who was kind of in it, but never really in it all 4 days. He just kind of hovered. I think he ended up finishing like T4, T5. And, he had a good week, but he just never really was in contention. I think the story is Tony Finau. I mean, the mark against him for the majority of his career has been that he's an excellent player and that he just can't close. And so I think the narrative behind a lot of what people were saying about him is if and when he does win again, it's going to be a big tournament, and it could be floodgates, right? It could be once he gets over that hump. And arguably, we talked about it, this was the best field of the year. It was better than any of the majors. It had every one of the best players on the PGA Tour, sans some European guys that obviously were not playing in this tournament, but the best field of the year. And he showed up. and he won it. You can say Cam Smith gagged it. He hit one into the freaking Hudson Bay off the first tee in the playoff, but typically that's been Finau's spot, right? Is to be the guy to gag it away, to get chased down, for someone to steal it from him. And so for Cam Smith to make the mistake off the tee and basically hand it to Finau, I was happy for him. Didn't have a ticket on him, didn't make me an ounce of money, never really jumped in on him because I thought he didn't have a chance, but excited to see him win. I hope it does open up the floodgates, because to me, when guys like Tony Finau are in contention and are playing well and can win tournaments, it makes golf a lot more interesting.
Yeah, I'm a big Tony Finau fan. I've lost a shit ton of money on him in the past. I didn't have a ticket on him this week, but I think this was probably, and to be completely honest with you, not including financial involvement, this was the biggest time I was rooting for someone to actually win a tournament, be Tiger at the Masters, just cheering with my own heart. So I was very happy for him. He's such a nice guy. He's so damn good. He's just constantly a top 10 machine over the years, that he just has never been able to cross the finish line. And I'm not saying Cam Smith. I mean, anything can happen in the playoff, but I'm not saying Cam Smith gagged it away. I'm saying Tony Finau shot a back 930 on Monday, and got it there. When he hit it into the bunker on 18, I didn't get to watch Monday that much. I was at work, so I was like,
it wasn't on TV. The last part of the tournament wasn't even on TV, which is a total travesty. I mean, it's a joke. I listened to it on PGA Tour Radio, so you didn't miss anything that way because there was nothing to watch.
Yeah, I was watching it on my laptop. They had a stream online that I was watching, but yeah, he got into the bunker on the 72nd hole, and when he hit it out to 7 feet, I was like, in my mind, I was like, he's not making this putt.
Yeah.
There's no chance in hell he's making this putt.
No way.
Drained it, beautiful putt, and drained it, made it to the playoff. And I think for me, bigger surprise than Tony Finau winning is Jon Rahm kind of wilting away. I thought this was Jon Rahm's tournament. I thought there was no chance in hell anyone was going to beat Jon Rahm. He was clicking on all cylinders, even when he had some loose shots and he was playing maybe his B- game. I just didn't think anyone was going to go up and grab this tournament away from him. So Jon Rahm kind of wilting away a little bit on the back nine, and not making it to at least the playoff, was very surprising to me.
The thing I would say is, outside of Rahm winning the U.S. Open this year, which we've all been kind of waiting for him to win a major, right? He was the best player in the world without a major. He's the most complete player on tour when we talk about things. Morikawa can't putt. There's certain guys that can't chip. Spieth can't hit a ball off the tee. But Rahm, there really are no weaknesses in his game, no glaring weaknesses. There are times when his putter lets him down. There are times when his irons aren't firing. But by and large, he is the most complete player in golf. But we really have seen this from him year in and year out, where he's always in contention. He has a lot of second, thirds, fourths, and fifths, and he just can't pull the trigger to win. So outside of the U.S. Open win, I don't think as much has changed in Jon Rahm. And I hear you. I felt the same way you did. Through 54 holes, much like with Russell Henley and Harris English and a bunch of other guys we've seen, it was his tournament. And then he just kind of fell apart. He started missing putts. He started missing greens, and he literally gagged it away. While I'm disappointed, because I thought, hey, this is locked up, and it kind of lost my interest for a while. And then when I just randomly checked back in and saw that he had fallen behind Cam Smith and Tony Finau, I obviously tuned back in. But, Rahm just he has those tournaments where he's in control, and then the wheels kind of fall off for him. So I'm interested to see how he bounces back. This is a tournament, obviously, event-wise, that he won last year, and he's the odds-on favorite again this week. So I'll be curious to see how he bounces back, and how, the larger betting and DraftKings community responds to him, whether or not he's as owned as he was last week and as highly bet as he was.
Yeah. I mean, it just goes to show it's difficult to win golf tournaments. It is super, super difficult. I think growing up, at least from my end, I think we were super spoiled by Tiger Woods. The guy had a 54-hole lead and never lost, literally closed out the tournament every time. Jon Rahm, I mean, he puts himself in contention every Sunday. And if he does that enough throughout his career, he's going to get to that. He's going to cross the finish line multiple times. I think he's going to win 20 to 30, maybe even more times in his career if he continues to go on this trajectory. But like we said, like it's difficult to win a tournament. And I think I read something online that um, do you have any idea when the last time a 54 hole lead was converted to a win? Can you take a guess on that? I know the answer, but it's crazy to think.
I would say it's been at least a year. I can't think of a guy who's
So,
had a 50-hole lead that's closed it out.
so the last time somebody closed out a 54 hole lead on tour was Phil Mickelson at the PGA. So that
That's
was,
right. I forgot about
yeah,
Phil at the PGA
yes.
this year.
That's crazy to think that just having a 54 hole lead, like sleeping on the lead on Saturday night, just doesn't mean anything right now. Some people just keep coming in from behind and catching the leader and taking it from there. So it's crazy to think that it's been that long since somebody converted a 54 hole lead.
Yeah, it is interesting. You talked about it. It's difficult to win tournaments, especially a tournament like we had last week. Again, I mentioned it, arguably the best field of the year. So you're playing against the best guys on the PGA Tour. So, we shouldn't be surprised because it's tough to win. But again, I think everybody felt like it was a runaway. Rahm was going to end up winning by 4 or 5, maybe even 6 strokes at the end of the day. And for him to kind of fall apart, it was surprising. But, hey, it is what it is. I didn't have
Yeah.
any money on Rahm, which I'm glad I didn't. But at the same point in time, I'm happy for Tony Finau, just like you, one of my favorite guys. Cam Smith, this is now 2 out of the last, 3 or 4 tournaments where he's been there with a chance to win, hasn't been able to close it out. So he's starting to fall into that narrative where it's like, can Cam Smith close, right? These guys won 2 team events, and I think he won a WGC a few years ago here, but that's really it. So, it's interesting. The other guy that I think going into the week, I was kind of a sleeping giant that we talked about there really too, and that was Dustin Johnson and Brooks Koepka. DJ misses the cut, and Brooks never really is relevant all week. So, that was a little surprising for me. And I think
JT finally flipped it around. He played well last week.
Yeah, I mean, JT played well. Like I said, I bet JT, and I felt good about the number. There's value there. We're seeing the same thing in the betting odds this week. But like I said, I'm surprised Brooks couldn't get it together. Whether he's got lingering problems with that knee. I think that's what ultimately led him to not play well a few weeks ago here. You've got Morikawa, who came forward and said that he had a back injury at the Olympics that nobody knew about. So again, there were a number of things that kind of popped up. And, Louis now missing 2 events in a row. So there were some things that were swirling that were unexpected that happened last week that just kind of went under the radar just because Rahm was dominating that tournament. Nobody really talked about anything else that was happening. But, it's interesting.
I was saying after Thursday, like people thought the tournament was over with Rahm and JT being, -8 or whatever they were and co-leaders. I just assumed one of them was going to win it. And it just goes to show they play 72 holes for a reason. I think it's the perfect amount of time to determine a golf tournament champion. So, yeah, a lot of, like you said, a lot of things went under the radar just because of Jon Rahm dominating for the 70 holes.
The last thing that I would say before we get into this week about the tournament, the one thing that was surprising to me, and again, nobody talked about it, was Bryson. Bryson was puking strokes. I mean, in terms of bogeys, double bogeys, but he had just as many birdies. I mean, the guy was a freaking birdie machine.
He had two pars on Thursday.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I would venture a guess that he had as many birdies and bogeys as he did pars for the week. It was crazy.
Great DraftKings player last week.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. From a DraftKings perspective, he was absolutely phenomenal. From an outright betting perspective, he was never relevant, but the guy was just, you could tell, like, there were spurts where he was just on fire and then he would just absolutely fall apart. And again, most of it had to do with his around the green game, which has been a problem here all year. But his putter, I mean, that's really been the difference. When Bryson was in contention and winning tournaments earlier in the year, he was putting to what we would consider him a more normal form. And he's just been off, man. The last 3 or 4 weeks, he just has not putted well.
Yeah. Bryson is he's so volatile. You just never know with him. And now he's signing up for like long drive championships and stuff like that. So who knows? I'm on him this week. I actually placed a bet on him, but we'll get into that in a minute. But I do want to give a shout out to my man, Daniel Berger. He definitely had the biggest shot of the week for me. He chipped in on his very last hole to get me to make the cut, got me a 6 of 6 through. on DraftKings on my main lineup, and I ended up going from pretty much not cashing in anything to cashing in everything. So big shout out to Daniel Berger when he when I was following him on Shot Tracker because I was like stressing the cut, and he hit it to like 40 feet off the green. I was like, God damn it! Like again, another 5 of 6. I'm not going to cash anything. And then next thing I know, shot 3 in the hole. I'm like, yes! I was like celebrating. I was like going nuts. But yeah, 6 of 6. Big shout out to Daniel Berger getting through the cut there. So thanks a lot, Dan.
Yeah, well, I mean, we talked about ownership and what can happen. Was widely publicized on Twitter. Many people mentioned it, that the 6 of 6 rate went from like less than 1% up to like
Yeah,
6% just on Berger making the cut.
yeah, he
That's
was
how
very
a heavily
chalky.
owned guy can
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah, yeah, he was very chalky. So like when you see that, I know it hurt a lot of people, the people that faded him, obviously, but I was
Yep.
heavy on him last week, and yeah, I was just ecstatic that he got through. So yeah, thanks a lot, Dan. Appreciate it.
All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into this week. We've already talked about the course a little bit. Caves Valley Golf Club in Owings Mills, Maryland.
Baltimore, Maryland. Yeah,
Baltimore. It's a Tom Fazio design, so there's some comps and corollaries that you can draw to like Quail Hollow, Rory's track, where he won this year. It is one of the longer courses of the year that these guys are going to see. 7,500 yards, basically. It's a par 72, so we've got full 4 par 5s on this track. Last year champion John Rahm, but it was at Olympia Fields. Very tough track at 4 under. Not sure what we're going to get at Caves Valley. But because of that, I think what we're going to do is we're going to leaning towards ball strikers. Both Rick and I have kind of identified that heavy approach, heavy off the tee. We want good drives in case they ratchet up the rough on the fairways. Par 4 scoring is going to be important. There's a number of par 4s that are over 450 yards. And then proximity with the par 5s, that 175 to 200 plus proximity will be a key proximity, whether it's the longer par 4s or par 5s this week. With all that being said, Rick, let's go ahead and jump to the top of the board. Rahm, Xander, Jordan, JT, DJ, Brooks, Morikawa, almost the same exact board we had last week, above $10,000. The betting odds look almost identical to what they were last week. Who do you like at the top of the board?
yeah. I've been fading Rom, and I've been underweight on Rom for the last few weeks. He's just been too expensive. I just can't do it anymore. I have to go to John Rahm. He's just so good, and he's just in contention. He's paying off his even though he's not winning, he's paying off his price tag, just finishing in the top 5. So I'm definitely gonna be going to Rahm. And outside of Rahm, I don't really like anyone else up here. I mean, there's issues with everyone. If I was going to maybe go to a second person, it would probably be Jordan. He's coming in pretty low owned. He's coming in lowest owned out of these 10K guys. And he actually has a little bit of experience at this course. He has some Under Armour ties. Under Armour is obviously based out of Baltimore. So I think whenever he's gone to, the Under Armour facilities, which is a beautiful facility, by the way, I've seen it plenty of times. I have a lot of friends that actually work there. So yeah, I guess anytime he has to go to the Under Armour facilities, maybe he stops by this course and plays. They say he's played it like 10 times. So he does have some experience there. So I like that ownership on Jordan this week. He's coming in sub 10%, but I think I mean, out of these guys, I think John Rahm and Jordan are probably my guys. DJ, who knows? I keep going to him, but he's just something's wrong with him. I thought he would turn it on this time of the year because he loves the cash, but he's just not playing good. And I just I'm not feeling DJ anymore. And then Morikawa, this seems like a perfect course for him, like a ball striker's course, but he said something about his back being hurt from Tokyo or something like that. And that's why he missed the cut last week, didn't play well. Who knows how much of that is a factor now and if that's going to drive down ownership, but I'm still seeing him coming in pretty heavily owned. So I think people are going to be going to him no matter what. So I like John Rahm and Jordan up here. Who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned him, and he does have the stigma, and that is Colin Morikawa. I mean, he had a god awful week last week. It's the first time I think that he's lost strokes on approach, and I don't know, like the last 10 or 15 weeks. Obviously, we don't have strokes gained information from like the Masters or from the Open, but prior to that, I mean, he just continued to gain on strokes gained approach, and he lost half a stroke this week. So obviously something sideways. But I like the ownership break, and I think a week away, even though he is coming in, 10, 11% ownership, that is low for up top. And if I'm going to play kind of that game theory ownership, where I'm trying to find guys with lower ownership and gain some traction, it's going to be at the top of the board. So I'll probably be heavy into Morikawa and, basically take my chances there. I do like Rom as well, but, at, 22% ownership, I don't know if I can be overweight in him, with him being
Yeah, it's
coming in.
tough.
Yeah, it's so difficult to roster him, and then it creates a lot of challenges for you everywhere else on the board, right? Trying to find value. Again, there are only 70 guys in the field, so pricing is somewhat compressed, but it's hard to argue against him. You mentioned the fact that he has been returning value, even though he is the highest priced guy in the field. The other guy that I like up here is Xander. He's, for whatever reason, he's been coming in under ownership. Again, I think he finished inside the top 15 this week, so it wasn't fantastic. He never was really in contention, but he also scored a decent amount on DraftKings. So I like Xander. Anytime it's a no cut event,
No cut. Yeah.
Xander. Yeah, Xander and JT are just the two guys that you should play. JT's obviously the other guy that's coming in heavily owned. I watched, like we talked about earlier, I watched his number open up at 25 and drop quickly to like 18, 17, 16 in terms of betting. So, I think he's going to be a very popular play. He could end up eclipsing Rom as the most heavily owned guy in this area. So I probably will stay away from DraftKings, but he will be a bet for me this week. And then the guy for me that I just don't know what to do anything with is Brooks. It's a real easy fade for a lot of people because he just hasn't been playing well. So I'll probably stay away from him as well. I may take a shot with him again on betting just because, either he wins or he comes in dead last. If he doesn't win, it doesn't mean anything different to me. But in terms of DraftKings scoring and points, obviously, if you're going to make the kind of investment you need to make to add him to your roster, you got to try and get a guy who's got a good ceiling. And, Brooks right now, I don't know the state of his game. So for me, it's probably Morikawa, Xander, and then Rom would be the three. And if I had to fade somebody, the obvious choice to me is DJ. He's just not playing well, and
Yeah.
I don't see any signs of life. I don't see it changing, and I just don't think I can get there with him in DraftKings this week.
Yeah, I mean, if this was a typical week for me, a no cut event, I would pivot from Rom to Xander, but I think I'm going to try to be a little different this week and actually play some Rom. I usually don't play him when he's this expensive, but yeah, no cut event, you can never really go wrong with Xander or JT. Brooks is a conundrum, man. He's I don't know, like it just seems like the price is good on him as far as a betting aspect, 28-1 or 30-1 even in some
Yeah,
spots. Like it seems like a good number on Brooks. He's priced, longer odds than people like Louis Oosthuizen, who is, coming off, a little bit of a back injury. So just to think that Brooks is, has longer odds than Louis is just a weird thing to me, because we know that Brooks is a 4-time major champion, one of the best players in the world. So, but there's always that motivation factor with Brooks. We never know like how invested he is into something that's not a major. So yeah, I'm not really going to be on Brooks either. He was in it for a little bit last week. He did play really well on Friday last week and turned it on, but then he kind of faded away and played awful on Monday. So yeah, it's just pick your poison up here. You can probably go with some game theory, playing some Jordan Spieth or some Xander Schauffele, but yeah, I think the main guy up here is John Rahm. I think I'm just going to be overweight on him heavy on this week.
absolutely. Dropping down into that next tier, the 9K range. It's headlined by the winner of the Northern Trust, Tony Finau. We've got Louis Oosthuizen, Cam Smith, Rory McIlroy, Bryson DeChambeau, Patrick Cantlay, Victor Hovland, of course, your boy Daniel Berger. This range is very, very interesting because it's almost the exact same lineup again that we saw last week in this range. Obviously, some shuffling. Bryson's dropped down a little bit. Louis back in the field. Cam Smith and Tony Finau are getting the boost. It's an interesting mix of guys. Oddly enough, a guy that nobody wanted to touch the last 2 or 3 weeks in Bryson DeChambeau all of a sudden is getting a lot of steam headed into this week. Who do you like in the 9K range?
I'm gonna go back to Vic. I just never can quit him. I don't know why. I think it kind of encouraged me a little bit to see him get pissed off last week. I think that it's going to motivate him, maybe light a little bit of a fire under him. I love Vic. I also like Cantlay this week. I just I never really play Cantlay that much, but I just have a feeling that this course sets up really well for him. I've seen some Muirfield Village comps to this course, maybe. So obviously, we know he won that earlier this year. He owns that course. He loves that course. So I definitely like some Cantlay. And then the game theory play here, the ownership pivot is Tony Finau. I mean, can he? No one really likes to ever play the guy, that won the previous week, and I'm seeing him come in at like my site's showing me like 5% ownership right now, and that's ridiculous. I mean, obviously, you got a big price boost, but can he do it back to back weeks? Like we said, are the floodgates open? We don't know. Tony Finau seems like a family guy. He doesn't seem like he's like going out partying and celebrating his win or anything like that. I think he probably just, you know, talked to his family on Zoom because his family wasn't there at the tournament last week. So they probably talked to him on Zoom, went to bed, and then just didn't. He doesn't. I don't think he drinks any alcohol. I think he's Mormon or something like that. I don't
He
know,
is
but
he is
yeah,
a devout Mormon. So
yeah, so I think he's focused on winning the FedEx Cup. I think he's now number one in the FedEx Cup standings. He locked up his spot on the Ryder Cup team pretty much. So I think he's motivated to play well this week. So I think ownership wise, going back to Finau, why not? I mean, he seems like a good play for this course, especially if you're liking bombers this week.
yeah, no, I to me, he's my favorite play in this range, and the fact that he is the most under-owned guy, at least projections going into the tournament, that is surprising to me. If you listen to his post-round interview, he talked about it that he had been playing the best golf of his career leading up to this point, and it really sounded like a guy who is very confident in where his game is right now. So I like Finau a lot this week. He will be heavily owned in many of my lineups, especially if he's coming in, as the lowest owned guy in this area. The other guy that I like is Cantlay. You mentioned it, the Muirfield Village corollary that people are drawing. That course in Quail Hollow are the two that most people are kind of saying you want a similar setup in the player styles, which would also lead you to Rory, which is why Rory's probably one of the most heavily owned guys in this range. But I like Finau a lot. And then Cam Smith has been playing great. I
Yeah.
mean, in the last 4 weeks, he's got, basically 2 top 5 finishes. He's playing really, really well. We know what he does well. He's a wizard around the greens. He's phenomenal putter. Where he struggles is much like Jordan Spieth is off the tee. So if he can keep the ball in play like he did for 72 holes of the tournament here last week, he's going to be in contention. And at $9,500, you don't need him to win. You just need him to finish in the top 10, top 15, much like Cantlay did last week. So I wouldn't be afraid to go back to Cam Smith, but Finau will be the guy I'll be heavily invested in this area.
Yeah, there's not a lot of water on this course, so there are a lot of trees. So getting a little wayward off the tee might cause a little bit of trouble for someone like Cam Smith or Jordan, like we talked about earlier. But yeah, I could see going back to him. He's coming in pretty low owned here. The guy I don't know what to do with here is Louis. He's coming in, like 15% ownership. It looks like
Yeah.
coming off 2 weeks where he withdrew basically because he's citing a back injury. You never really know with Louis. If you do play Louis this week, do me a favor, wake up early, make sure he's playing and hasn't withdrawn. If he does withdraw, hopefully he's nice enough like he was last week to withdraw the day before the tournament starts. But I really don't know what to do with Louis. He's been arguably the third or fourth best player on tour this year. This seems like a perfect course for him. Can we see Louis in contention on Sundays? We never know. I mean, if Abraham Answer and Tony Finau can win, 2 tournaments in 3 weeks or whatever, why can't Louis do it? I mean, the guy's number one in the United States, so why can't let Louis step up and do it? And I think going to him, I don't know if I believe the ownership that much, just because people are a little scared to click his name because he hasn't played the last 2 weeks. But I could definitely see clicking his name and being a good play. But yeah, what do you think about Louis this week?
Yeah, Louis is an easy fade for me, and this is why. It's the point that you brought up, the fact that he's coming in at kind of anywhere between 13 to 17% ownership. If he was coming in like in the Finau range, at 10, sub 10%, or if he was, 22% owned, then that would be harder for me to make a choice. The fact that he's basically coming in, middle of the road, it's an easy fade for me, and I'll just stay away from him and hope that he does what he always does, which is he finishes really well, but he's not going to win the tournament. So, Louis is just a guy that I just, he's a good player. He's solid. He makes a lot of sense from a DraftKings floor perspective. I would rather take my shots on ownership, like I said, in the 10K, here in the 9K range. Give me a guy at 10%. Give me a guy that's going to come in at half the ownership of, a handful of other guys in this range. I'd rather do that than take a guy like Louis at, 15%.
Yeah, I could see that for sure. I think my fade in this range is be Rory. I don't know. He just didn't his irons weren't clicking last week, and that's weird for him. He lost a lot of strokes from approach on one of those rounds, and he's coming in super highly owned. I mean, the price is really really tempting with Rory, 9,400 for arguably one of the best players of our generation, and yeah, I just think the ownership's a little bit too high for me. I'd rather go to Vic. I'd rather go to Cantlay. I'd rather pay up and go to Cam Smith or Louis. So I think I'm out on Rory this week.
Yeah, he's not a DraftKings play for me. He may be a bet
Well, yeah,
for me if he ends up falling to a number that I like, because he is one of those guys that we're seeing that number balloon on, because he hasn't played well here the last few weeks, especially after last week. So we could see a Rory number on the betting markets that is north of 30-1, which would be insane. And if it does reach that number, I don't think I can stay away from it.
yeah. One thing I forgot to mention about Rory is that he's currently sitting at 28th in the FedEx Cup standings. So bad tournament from him this week. He could miss Eastlake next week. He could miss the Tour Championship, which we know is a course he just dominates at. So
Yep.
I think he's going to have a little bit of motivation this week. I know it's tough for Rory to sometimes get some motivation, but I think he's going to come in focused, ready to play well. But that doesn't always translate to a good tournament for someone like Rory. So I'm gonna take the chance and fade him this week and play the other guys around him.
Yep, I like the play. Bouncing down into this next tier, the 8K range, a lot of familiar names. And you mentioned the narrative behind seeing recent winners from guys who we don't expect to win, Abraham Answer, Tony Finau. A number of the guys in this range fit that narrative. It starts off with the very guy at the top, at $8,900, Scotty Scheffler. Seems like Tony Finau 2.0. Another guy that I think fits the narrative is Corey Connors. We saw him make a run on Saturday and then have an opportunity to be into the mix on Monday. Ultimately, it didn't happen. And the last guy that I would also throw into that mix, the narrative mix of a guy who plays well, that everybody thinks is right on the cusp but hasn't really crossed the threshold yet, is Joaquin Niemann at $8,100. So we've got three guys that kind of meet the criteria if we're looking for someone to break through with a win. Who do you like in the 8K range?
Yeah, this range is kind of tough because ownership seems really really flat. Everyone is coming in right between 10 and 15% ownership. I think my favorite play from this range is gonna be Paul Casey. I just think this is a very, very good course for him. Ball strikers wise, we know that he's a great ball striker and just can't putt sometimes. So I think he's Paul Casey's going to be in like my cash game lineup or like my main lineup or something like that. Other than Paul Casey, I like Scheffler. He seems like he's the next guy. After Answer and Fina have won, that's probably like maybe the best player that hasn't won yet on tour. So he played all right last week. He was in the mix early, but kind of faded on the weekend. But I definitely like some Scheffler and some Casey this week. Someone I think I'm going to fade, and I mean, I always get burned when I fade Harris English, but it just I see Harris English and I just think back to old Harris English and I'm like, no way this guy is like a top 10 player in the or top 15 player in the world. And
He is.
he is. So I know it's crazy to think that Harris English is this good, but I just never get to him. And just he's been so lights out this year, and it's just hard for me to even click his name. I'd rather go up to someone like Corey Connors or down to Paul Casey or Joaquin Niemann, like you said. But I think Harris English is another fade for me, and he's probably going to burn me again, like he always does.
Well, the guy I like here, oddly enough, he's a guy that I typically don't like to play, but I've been watching the stats on him over the last few weeks, is Sung J M. He's been coming in, the ball striking, especially the approach, has been on fire. I think he's gained strokes against the field in approach like 7 or 8 tournaments in a row. The off the tee game is starting to come around. He gained, basically 4 strokes off the tee versus the field. The guy, his last 3 events, he's gained roughly 15 strokes tee to green, where he's gagged it away, which was the strength here early in the year, has been on the putting greens. He's lost 4, he's lost 2, and he lost 1. So I like Sungjae a lot this week. His ownership, I don't think is going to come in too crazy. I think he may be one of those guys that'll be kind of in that, 10 to 12 range when it all shakes out. And it's really going to depend on where people play at the top, on how many of these guys in the 8K that they can actually jam in. I think, like you, a lot of people are looking at Casey for a very good reason. He meets all the criteria. He drives the ball well. He has distance. The guy hits fairways. His tee to green game is arguably the best in the business. So I like the pivot to Sungjae. The other guy that I'm looking at, and he's probably the guy, again, from a game theory perspective, is Webb. He's the only guy, I think, in this range that's coming in sub 10% ownership. So Webb is a guy who, 3-4 weeks ago at the Wyndham, everybody was on him. And then kind of since then, we've all gone cold for good reason. He just hasn't been playing like the Webb we saw a few years ago here. In terms of his, his tee to green stats, he hasn't been the best. But, if I can grab a guy who at one point in time, hell, a year ago, he was one of the top 10 players in the world, and he's a little bit off. He had a decent week last week. He didn't finish very well. He finished like T47 or something like that. But he gained in almost all aspects of the game. Where he fell short was obvious on the putting greens. Webb's not typically a good driver of the ball, so his off the tee stats I kind of tend to throw out. But he gained on approach 2 weeks in a row now here, and we'll see if he comes in, close to that 5% ownership. If we see that number get there, I could see sprinkling him in to try and gain some level of ownership or gamesmanship, I should say, versus the field in some of the larger tournaments. So I like Sungjae a lot. I'm going to think about Webb. You're fading English, so it gives me some pause. I love Harris English, dude. He's just like, he's so automatic. And so it's really hard for me to turn away from him. What about Neiman? I mentioned him off the jump, but what do you think about Neiman this week?
I love Joaquin Neiman. You never have to sell me on him. He is sneaky long off the tee to green. He's great. He sucks at chipping. He sucks at short game and everything like that. But at a course where tee to green and ball striking is so important, I mean, you could definitely play some Joaquin Neiman. He actually finished I think he finished 3rd at this event last year, so he has some good ties to this event, obviously at a different course. But I could definitely see some Neiman. I would rather play Neiman over English, which is probably the kiss of death. But I mean, the one other thing that I just thought about is that with Patrick Reed actually getting pneumonia now and possibly not playing on the Ryder Cup team, Harris English is on that fringe area of possibly being a captain's pick for the team. So I think this next couple weeks, I think they make the captain's picks after the Tour Championship next week. I think these next couple weeks are really, really big for Harris English to make that team. So he does have that motivation factor, especially if Reed's not going to be on the team because of his illness or whatever. So I could definitely see English having that motivation, but me personally, I just never get to him. If anything, I bet him, but I didn't bet him this week. I'm just out on him.
Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking about the Ryder Cup in English, your point about Reed is important because Reed was kind of a lock. And then it was like for that last captain's pick, because I think a lot of people are thinking Phil's going to get one. We won a major. This is his last hurrah. And, just the leadership that he brings to the locker room, which is important. It's something that the U.S. team has been lacking, which is why they've been getting their ass kicked by Europe here the last few iterations of the Ryder Cup, is they just can't pull together as a team. So Phil brings some aspects and some intangibles that I think are important. And, is it going to be English? Is it going to be, another guy that was floated out there was Kisner and Kokrak. Kisner's done. After missing the cut last week, nobody's carrying the Kisner flag anymore. That deal's gone. Yeah. And now that Reed is out of the picture, it really comes down to Harris English. I can't think of another guy.
Scheffler, maybe.
Yeah, Scheffler, right? And so those are the two guys. When we talk about the guys that are on the bubble, Scheffler and English are like 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Scotty's basically finished T5, T10 in every freaking tournament he's played in this year, hasn't won. English has won twice. He should have won a third time here. So, I don't know how you can keep him off other than saying that Scotty Scheffler is that next guy. He's the next Tony Finau, the next up and coming star. And if either one of those guys wins or has a very, very good showing this week, I could see in that being basically the difference between one guy making it, one guy missing the cut to be on the Ryder Cup team.
Yeah, I mean, we can do a whole show about the Ryder Cup. I can talk about the Ryder Cup for hours, but it's like my favorite tournament of the year. But yeah, it's that seems like that last spot. It all kind of depends on Reed's health. If he's actually healthy and he's back like to being, he tells Steve Stricker he's good to go, he's probably going to get a spot. We'll see. I don't know, but I just battling back from bilateral pneumonia seems a little rough for him, but it seems like it could be a good reason to get him out of that locker room. He's obviously been a cancer for that team for a little while now. So if we actually think he's off the team, yeah, that last spot I think is coming down to English or Scheffler, Webb, like Kisner, like Kokrak. Like one of these guys is going to make the team, and I personally don't think Phil should make the team. I mean, he other than his PGA championship, like what else has he done this year? But like you said, last hurrah, he's the veteran guy. Tiger Woods obviously has a big voice in that in Steve Stricker's ear, so he's probably going to tell him to take Phil and stuff like that. If it was me, if I was a captain, I would say, Phil, you had a great career. We want to win this Ryder Cup. We're going to take Scheffler. We're going to take English. We're going to take the people who I think can actually get us across the finish line. But yeah, that's a we'll discuss that after the Tour Championship and see where they go. But we'll do a show on that. So
yeah. My promise to you is we will do a Ryder Cup specific show so we can get it all of the question marks and the nuances as we get closer and closer to that thing. So
yeah,
we'll definitely do that.
Yeah, back to this tournament.
Yeah. Dropping down into the next tier, the 7K range. This is probably the smallest number of guys we've seen in this range, obviously, because there's only 69 guys in the field. But it's topped off by Lowry. Hoffman, a guy you really like, is at the bottom of this. I'm assuming you like Hoffman and DraftKings as well as on your betting card. But give me your guys from this range that you like, and then somebody that you're just going to stay away from this week.
Number one play is Chuck Hoffman. I love playing Chuck Hoffman. He is ball striking machine. And after not playing since the Open last week, he had his bad round. He got his bad round out of the way on Thursday. I think he just came in a little rusty. I think he shot a couple over par, but then he followed that up on Friday and Saturday with back-to-back 65s. And he also played good on Monday too. So he was in my main lineup last week. He's probably going to be he's definitely going to be in my main lineup this week. I just love him. I think he's been a ball striking machine this year. This course sets up really well for him. We'll get to it in my betting card, but he's definitely going to be part of that. Also, another guy I like here. I'm gonna fading English and playing Sergio Garcia is like
that's a terrible recipe.
It's that's
like someone saying, "Hey, do you want to eat cake or a shit sandwich?" And you say, "Hand me the shit sandwich."
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm gonna go back to Sergio. His ball striking is so good. His ownership is so low. 4%. I'm seeing 4% right now. So definitely gonna play some Sergio. And another guy that I'm gonna go back to here is gonna be Russell Henley. I think he's gagged away a couple 54-hole leads and final groups over the last couple months, but his ball striking has been so good. And if we're gonna talk about ball strikers, tee to green play, approach play at a course like this, Russell Henley is at the top of my list for someone who can hit the green and make a couple putts.
Yeah, I mean, in this range, typically I love Jason Kokrak. He just has not been playing very well as of late.
Back-to-back missed cuts.
Yeah. He just is not. He's not been the guy, right? He's always been very good off the tee. The irons were firing. The difference this year has been the putter, and all of a sudden that deal's just gone cold.
Yeah.
The guy that I do like here a lot is Keegan Bradley. Bradley showed really good form. He plays well in the Northeast, especially this time of year. He's the one outlier in these FedEx Playoff Cup events that has won one kind of out of left field. So I like Keegan this week. We talk about ball strikers. That is him to a T. I mean, I don't think I'll be able to stay away from Sergio either. I cannot believe I'm saying that. But the other guy that I like, just from a form perspective, it's Kevin Na. I mean, Kevin Na,
Yeah.
his last 4 or 5 tournaments, he's got 4 top 25s, he's got 3 top 10s, and I think 3 top 5s. So the guy arguably has been the best form player coming into this event. I realize the course may not be the best setup for him because Na is not long off the tee, but Na is good with long irons. He's a very good scrambler. And when the putter gets hot, man, the dude goes nuclear. So,
Yeah.
I could see using Na quite a bit this week. For me, it's really going to come down to ownership with him. If he ends up
Hmm.
coming in being super highly owned, which right now he's not,
Hmm.
then I may pivot away from him. But if I can get Na sub 10%, I like that, and he will be a staple for me in this price range.
Yeah. One guy that I'm not going to be on DraftKings wise, but I did place a bet on is EVR. He played really well last week. He was in it for most of the day on Monday. He had a one bad hole, I think that eventually got him out of the tournament. He's coming off of a win a couple weeks ago. His form has been great, but he's doing. I mean, we don't have stats from the tournament that he won, but it seems like he's doing it all with his putter. So that's a little scary. I'm not going to play him in DraftKings. I just placed a little bet on him just in case if he rides that hot putter into this week and is in contention on Sunday. But yeah, I'm out on EVR from a DraftKings perspective. He is on my betting card. Another guy that that no one's going to, who's been bad recently, that I've been playing all year, is Brian Harmon. At a course that ball striking is good and he can make a couple putts. He's coming in at like no ownership. No one's playing him. He's been bad recently, like I said. So I'll have a little bit of Brian Harmon also.
Yeah, I mean, the other guy that, if we're talking Tom Fazio design, again, high ceiling, very low floor, Siwoo Kim,
Yeah.
the guy when he is playing like he can play, he can go out and barnstorm a tournament. He's good with the driver, he's good with the irons. If you can get Siwoo at a really low ownership number, it's worth mixing him into some lineups. The guy that I am going to stay away from, even though he has been playing very well all year, especially the back half of the season, is Vegas. I don't know that to me that the steam's got to run out on that train eventually.
I think it ran out. I think it ran out last week. He had a
Yeah,
miscut last week, so I think
yeah.
he's a little tired.
Yeah, I mean, he still gained on approach, even though even though he missed the cut, which he's been leaning on heavily. His tee to green game has been solid. Obviously, he didn't hit the ball very well off the tee last week, and the putter finally went cold for the first time in I think like 4 or 5 weeks. So I'm out on Vegas, but again, it looks like a lot of people are back in, but I will be nowhere near the Vegas party.
Yeah, I'm gonna pivot off of Vegas too and go back to my guy from last week, who's Matt McNeely.
Yeah.
He was a staple in a lot of my lineups. He was in my main lineup last week. He didn't do much. He made the cut, so he got there on the weekend. So we're not really asking him to do much. I mean, there's no cut this week, but another course with small greens, any course with small greens like Pebble Beach or like last week, I usually like playing Matt McNeely. So definitely in that little range, in that little pocket right there, I'd rather go to Charlie and Mav, maybe even a little Siwoo, like you said, instead of the likes of like Kisner or Vegas or Cam Champ or somebody like that. I don't really like those guys this week.
What about your boy HV3? Won you a shitload of money last week. Won me money. What about
Yeah, I don't know. I just was feeling him last week. He had the course history at Liberty National. He finished like third there the last time they played there, and I just was feeling him last week. Is it going to ride into this week? Maybe. What's his ownership coming at? Let's see here. HV3 7%. That's a little higher owned than normal for HV3. I guess people saw him play well last week. Yeah, maybe I'm not gonna be like overweight field on him. If I play him, I'll be like right at the field or maybe like a little underweight. But yeah, I'd rather go to Sergio or someone else like that in that range. Kevin Na, like you said.
Yep, I'm similar. I may sprinkle him in just to have some exposure to him, but he won't be a staple of anyone.
I really like HV3 as a player. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
like he's a nice guy. He represents the African American community well. Like being on tour, he's great friends with Tiger Woods. Like I like him as a player. I would love to see him win a tournament at some point. But I don't not this week, not for me this week.
Yeah, I agree. I think all of the things you said about him, quality human being, I just can't see it happening this week. And he's probably due for some regression. Not a great putter of the golf ball, and I think he gained like 4 or 5 strokes putting this week. So I imagine him going back to kind of where his baseline is, which is a guy that kind of breaks even putting. So
Yeah.
dropping down to the final range in the dumpster diving below $7,000. If you're going to play one or multiple guys above $9,000, you're going to have to dip your toe into this water again. No cut, so you just got to hope that you can grab a guy like Keith Mitchell, who can score you some points. Keith Mitchell played great. Happy for him. He is probably one of my favorite guys. Won me a ton of money when he won. I think it was the Honda a few years ago here. So I have a soft spot in my heart for Keith Mitchell.
You're on him every week.
I know. There's a few guys, him, Sebastian Munoz, that are just almost for me. Sometimes I add them to the card, sometimes I don't, but they're continual bets for me. I just cannot stay away from those guys. But also another guy in this range that is kind of a FOMO guy for me is Max Homa. Just the upside, the availability to play with elite level guys and close out tournaments when in contention. He's also down here. Who do you like down here sub $7,000?
Yeah, I'm going to break your heart here and just say I'm going to fade Sebastian Munoz and Keith Mitchell both this week. They're the only two guys that I'm seeing on my projected ownerships that are coming in double-digit ownership. So
yeah,
those are 2 easy fades for me. I'm just going to go to the sub 10% guys, but I'll just start it right off the top. I like Cam Davis. He getting 4 rounds of Cam Davis is always a good thing. He's always a person that can make a big number on a hole and miss a cut potentially. But when you are guaranteed 4 rounds for someone that can put 3 really good rounds together potentially and 1 really bad round, it's really good for DraftKings scoring. I think my favorite play, who is my favorite player? My favorite play is probably going to be someone like Max Homa, like you said. I like him this week. I like some Aaron Wise this week. I don't really have a favorite play in this range. I did bet Patton Kizzire and Hudson Swafford. We'll get to that later, but I could definitely sprinkle some Kizzire and Swafford. Swafford last week, he's the bare minimum this week. He's $6,000 on DraftKings. So if you're gonna load up at the top and go down to someone at the bare min, he's not a bad play. He gained I think he gained like 12 or 13 strokes like ball striking last week. So his ball striking has really been good. He can't chip or putt worth shit, but he's not a bad guy to round out your lineup with that. You're going to get 4 guaranteed rounds. Another guy I like is Ryan Palmer. We always talk about courses where, we like John Rahm, Muirfield comp. Why not Ryan Palmer? Play some Ryan Palmer lineups together. But yeah, I'm out on Munoz. I'm out on Mitchell. I'll play some Cam Davis. I'll play some Aaron Wise, who seems like he played really well last week. So Max Homa, and then down below Kizzire and Swafford for me at the bottom.
Yeah, a guy that I like this week, and again, he's missed 5 out of the last 6 cuts. But again, he continues to strike the irons. He does what he does well, and he's terrible at the things that he sucks at, which is namely around the green and putting. But that's Grillo. If I can get Grillo below $7,000 and below 5% ownership, that is a recipe to me that makes
He's been
sense.
so bad recently.
I know. Believe me, I'm aware, but he's been consistently gaining strokes on approach, which is what he does well. So, even though he's been bad, again, missed 5 out of the last 6 cuts, the ball striking I keep going back to when I'm uncertain about a course where I don't know how things are going to play out. I'm just going to lean on ball strikers. So I do like Grillo. Stu Cink is another guy. He just quietly makes cuts and scores and just is automatic. So, if you can get Stu Cink at some decent ownership numbers, I could see sprinkling him in here. But I'm not going to go away from the guys that I like this much. Homa is just a guy I continually play. He'll be in there.
Yeah, I like Homa a lot this week.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about, the Quail Hollow Wells Fargo comp. That's a tournament he's won. Swafford struck the absolute crap out of the ball last week and just couldn't putt or chip. So those are 2 guys that I'll probably lean on. I do think Cam Davis sets up well too. Again, length off the tee, approach. That's just him all day. So I think a lot of those guys are guys that I'll end up circling on as well too. Dude, the guy that I'm like blown away at that I just keep wondering when he's going to turn back into the guy he was a year or 2 ago is Mark Leishman. Good God, what happened to Mark Leishman? Where did it's like COVID happened and Australia became like a total shit show. and he's just been terrible ever since then. I do not know what happened to him.
I don't know either. He won what did he win last year? He won Torrey Pines last year,
Yep.
and then COVID happened, and literally has been garbage since. I don't know. I don't get it. He was a world class player like a year ago, and he even played well at the President's Cup. I really don't know what happened to him after COVID happened, and there was that break, and he just came back and has been absolute trash since then. And it's surprising because he was so good, and he usually is a good ball striker. So coming in at 2% ownership, I mean, you don't need much of him if you want to take a stab at him, but I can't click his name.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard of all the names that are down here. He's probably the one that seems the most out of place
Yeah.
in terms of just long-term form, pedigree, where he is in terms of his game today versus where he was a year ago. So I may take some chances on Mark Leishman just because there is no cut. The worst thing is he finishes T69, and it is what it is. But at $6,700, if I'm going to buy low on a guy, I could see an argument to jump in on Mark Leishman here.
Any love for Phil?
I can't play Phil. That's Mike's guy. Anytime Phil's in the tournament, Mike's all over Phil. I can't do it. Again, if he shows up and plays well, good on Phil. He's just one of those guys, kind of like Louis for me, where it's like I just pretend he's not on the board, and that way when he plays well, it's like whatever. And if he doesn't play well, I'm like, see, I told you, he's not a good golfer. So I can't get on Phil.
It's really tough for me to click his name with the likes of Ryan Palmer and Max Homa and Aaron Wise and Patton Kizzire right around him, who I think are arguably much better players. So it's tough to click his name.
Yeah, I mean, down here, what you're looking for is a solid performance. I realize the upside with Phil. He won a major this year, but he's so inconsistent, and I don't know. At a course that we haven't seen before, it's really, really hard for me able to make him a part of my lineups.
Yeah. One more thing about Griot is that he's not going to make the Tour Championship. So unless he has a ridiculous week this week, so he's most likely not going to make the Tour Championship. So we probably won't see him again until the Fortnite Championship, which is his tournament. That's the only tournament he's ever won in his career. So this will be a good tune-up for him for that. So I'll definitely roster him at that tournament in a few weeks, but not for me this week. I don't think. I need to see some form out of him.
My free money guarantee with Grillo is he will make the cut this week, Rick.
Yeah, definitely going to make the cut this week.
Well, that transition is over to our betting cards for the week. Like we've talked about multiple times on this show when we're doing the Monday show with Mike, I kind of live in that 20 to 40 range. And with the number of golfers that we have here and kind of the spotty history, not knowing what's happening with the course, what Rahm did last week and the fact that he's the odds on favorite again, we're getting, again, phenomenal numbers on guys. So I don't have any bombs. I don't have anybody above 25. I am going to live in this range. Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Brooks Koepka, Bryson DeChambeau, and Patrick Cantlay. That is my card for the week. The only addition, which we talked about, if it gets there, is if I see Rory get to 30, I will absolutely be clicking that number. Berger is also somebody to keep an eye on. He was at 33 on the book that I use. And I could see going there. I've been on him like the last 3 or 4 weeks, and I stay off of him this week. I guarantee that he wins. But for me right now, I have 6 guys in the 20s, and that's my entire card for the week.
Yeah, it's a good range to pepper with Jon Rahm being so highly juiced up at what is he, like 6.5 to 1 or something like that. They had to place these odds for these guys around the 20s and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't recommend this. It's not on the actual slide itself, but I don't recommend doing this. But I do have a little bit of Jon Rahm action. I actually placed a parlay with trying to juice up Jon Rahm's number a little bit, which is a 3-leg parlay. I actually hit the first leg of it already. So it was the White Sox money line tonight, Tuesday night, which they already won. So I already hit the first leg of that. The second leg of it is the USA Women's National Team Solheim Cup this week, which is their version of the Ryder Cup, all parlayed with Jon Rahm. So I'm pretty positive USA is going to win the Solheim Cup. So I'm going to count that as a win. So I'm getting John Rahm at 25-1 if the second leg of that hits. So if John Rahm wins, I'll win 25-1. I don't recommend that. That's not a proper way to bet. So don't do that in your free time. But I wanted to get some John Rahm exposure this week. I'm going to have him in DraftKings, and I juiced him up a little bit. It would really suck if John Rahm won the tournament and then for some reason Europe won the Solheim Cup, which would be a big kick in the nuts. But I don't think that's going to happen. So, anyways, that's not on the slide, but I do have that action. Anyways, to the actual slide itself, my bets this week are I also have Bryson in the 25-1 number. Going back to Berger at 35, going back to Hovland at 35, Chuck Hoffman 65. EVR, like I said, I'm not playing him on DraftKings, but I did have a little bet on him at 80-1. McNeely, I love McNeely this week, 110-1, and then a couple little bombs on Kazire and Swafford at 250 and 300-1. And then for my free money play of the week, a couple weeks ago, I got a little juiced up number with Webb Simpson top 20 minus 150 at the Wyndham, which hit last week. I give a little bit bigger odds on Harold Varner top 20 at 6-1. This week I'm going a little bit in between. I'm going to go Charlie Hoffman top 20 guaranteed free money of the week. I got it at 2-1 plus 200. So put $100 in. You're going to cash that ticket on Sunday. I promise you're going to get $200 back, or you can bet a bigger number if you want, like I did, and get double your money back.
So you're 100% on the free money guarantee, 2 for 2 weeks in a row. So the Chuck Hoffman T20, I like the bet. I actually bet Hoffman T10 this week. I do like him as well, just like you. When we're talking about ball strikers and when you try to factor in all the unknowns, Hoffman's got just such a high floor. I can see him easily finishing T20 this week. So I love the bet. I will be in, like I said, I'm already in the T10, so I'll be in the T20 as well. Any other thoughts this week on the tournament or on the PGA Championship as we get close to Eastlake and the Tour Championship, I should say?
So one thing I wanted to say was there is a Millie Maker this week on DraftKings. It's staring me at the face, especially because I had a really good week last week. It is a $4,000 buy-in. So it's $4,000 buy-in. I think there's like 500 players in it or like something like that. So first place is $1 million. I did have a really good week last week, so I do have the bankroll to play it if I wanted to. I'm thinking about playing it, but we'll see. I'll tweet it out if I actually do enter it. I still have some time to decide if I want to play it or just save my bankroll. I don't really like playing DraftKings for the Tour Championship next week with 30 guys. So
yeah,
if I'm going to go hard on something this week, I'd like to take a stab at $1 million. We probably won't see another $1 million first prize until God knows, probably like maybe the Masters next year or something like that. They usually do it for the majors, but for some reason they have one this week only for a big buy-in like that. So I usually sprinkle a little bit week to week in football, but in golf, which is my bread and butter, I won't get another stab at $1 million until maybe next April. So I'm thinking about playing it. I have the bankroll to play it. So if I do play it, I'll let you guys know, and you guys can root me on.
Yeah, well, that's for you. That's too rich for my blood. I will not be paying the $4,000 Million Maker, but I do think it's a great opportunity for anybody who wants to take a stab. Again, to your point, these tournaments, these Millionaire Makers, they only come up a few times a year. So This one probably will be the last one. They won't have one for the Tour Championship.
No.
And for these tournaments in general, I actually like them much better for betting than I do for DraftKings, just because of the no cut, these condensed fields. The swings can be massive from day to day because everybody's making it through. So I think they create a lot of opportunity in the betting markets, and I think you get the reverse in DraftKings. It doesn't mean I won't be playing, but I'm not going to throw down $4,000 to get in the Millionaire Maker this week.
Yeah, I don't recommend it if you don't have the bankroll. If I had a bad week last week, I wouldn't even be thinking about it. But I like 3x my money last week. I got the bankroll for it, so thinking about taking a stab. I do like the tournament setup with only 500 guys. You only got to beat 499 guys to win $1 million. So it's not like a huge GPP where it's like $20 entry fee and you got to beat like hundreds of thousands of people. So yeah, it is worth a stab if you're maybe you can get a chance to win $1 million, but who knows? I'll make that decision tomorrow and when it gets a little closer to lock. If I actually feel really comfortable about it, I like some guys a lot, then maybe I'll enter a lineup in there. We'll see.
Well, I think that's going to do it for the week. One and done pick, Rick. Who do you like this week?
I don't have anyone at the top anymore. I'm gonna have to dip down below. I might play someone like Charlie Hoffman. I'm pretty much out of all my one and done, so I'm excited to get it going again for next season. I do play in a super season long one and done that starts at the Fortnite Championship. So that's with Rick Run Good, Rick Gaiman. He runs a season long one. Usually most one and done start in like January with the Tournament of Champions, but I actually
Yeah.
start playing one that starts in the beginning of the season. So excited to start that. I'm not really in contention. There's one that I'm a little bit close to the cash line that I'm probably going to go with someone. So it's probably going to be someone like Charlie Hoffman for me, or if I have someone in that 8K range, maybe I might have someone like Tony Finau available. I'm not sure, but yeah, someone like Charlie Hoffman lower down the board so I can gain a little bit of leverage on the field.
So then give me your pick. If you don't have anybody left at the top, who's your one guy you think is going to win this week?
From the top,
Yep.
John Rahm.
It's a popular pick. It's hard to argue with. I am going
Yeah.
to go with Justin Thomas this week. I think he is due. He's been playing well. And I figure if I'm going to pick somebody, it might as well be somebody I have money on this week.
Yeah, I could definitely see him winning. He played really well last week, and with a world class player like that, all he needed to do was flip his putter around, and he's back to hitting greens and making putts and back in contention.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Rick,
Yep.
thank you as always. We appreciate all the insights and information. Michael, thank you for running the board and producing the show. And thank all of you guys for tuning in, hitting the like button, commenting, and then, of course, subscribing. So we appreciate it. And we'll see you guys here again next week for the Tour Championship. Take
Yep.
it easy.
Good luck. Good luck this week, guys.